Hello everyone and welcome back to part 12 of Moneyball Approach with Brentford, with me Lygo on Football Manager. And today we're going to look at the end of season review and also look at the team analysis. We'll start with the in-game reviews, the end of season awards. Fans Player of the Year, Matthias Jensen with 51% of the vote, followed by Christian Norgard and Saeed Benrahma. Fairly expected with that. Three of our big players throughout the season. Goal of the season, Saeed Benrahma against Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think this one was in a video. But as you can see, it's a free kick. Benrahma, look at the bend on that and pings it into the top corner. Maybe not my goal of the season, but everybody loves a good free kick, don't they? Signing of the season, very little to choose from here. I think Botheim and possibly one or two youngsters we brought in. So signing of the season, Botheim. And then young player of the season, Matthias Jensen, 24 years old, fans player of the season, so probably likely to pick up player of the season as well out of the youngsters. Stats, top goal scorer Saeed Benrahma from this left hand side. Highest average rating, Matthias Jensen with a 7.29, who also got 12 assists throughout the season. Best pass completion is David Raya, and I think with a 93%, I think that speaks more about what we try to do with building from the back as opposed to the quality of the midfield. But Saeed Benrahma picking up 9 man of the match awards, had the most of them there. And then the disciplinary ones, most yellow cards, Pontus Jansson with 16 yellow cards and 1 red card for Dominic Thompson. And then, according to the game, the team of the season, Royer in goal, Henry, Jonvier, Janssen and Dalsgaard make up the back four. Baptiste, Norgard and Jensen in midfield, which I definitely agree with. And then Benrahma and Boemo and Botheim up front. So no space in the team of the season for Ollie Watkins. 1920 season review, we were expected to make the playoffs. We did make the playoffs, unfortunately losing in the final. We lost in the 4th round of the FA Cup to Arsenal and lost in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup to Spurs. Definitely achieved on there. The initial budgets for the summer, 425,000, so a slight increase on the wage budget. And then a transfer budget of just shy of 9 million euros. And then looking at the club vision and expectations meeting, I can't negotiate this. I've actually already done this, but unfortunately was having audio issues over the weekend, so I've had to re-record this video. But the club culture is still looking us to play attacking, possession and entertaining football. Don't sign players over the age of 31, which perfectly fits in with our philosophy. And then signing players from the lower levels of the domestic game. Again, fits in with our philosophy, but it's something that we just have to make sure that we scout on to pick up those younger players and ones further down the ladder. 5-year plan, obviously work within the wage budget, it's a bit of a given for me. Sign players to sell for a profit, again, perfectly fits in with our approach. And then by the end of next season, they want us to win promotion to the Premier League. My contract expires and grow the club's reputation, which I presume with the promotion to the Premier League would automatically update. Quick look at the squad hierarchy. Team leaders of Watkins, Benrahma and Janssen. And don't particularly want to get rid of Watkins or Benrahma. I think we can get more from Watkins. Benrahma, top goal scorer. Janssen, I'm undecided on him. Would be a player that I'd probably let go if the right money came in for. I think he's 29, 30 years old. Yes, best defender, but 29, 30 years old. Value's going to decrease. Eventually he's going to become less of a player. So I think cash in where we can for him. We'll have a quick look at the season injury report. Biggest one there, Sorensen, who was out on loan last year. 1 injury, but was out for 5 months with a big injury. Canos picked up 4 injuries, but did have that broken ankle, which saw him miss a lot of the season. And then in terms of the most injuries, Derby Soklu was out on loan, picked up 8 injuries but only missed 10% of the season, so all little niggly ones. But Watkins was another one picking up 6 injuries, missed 16% of the season. Longest spell 3 weeks, so again probably keep an eye on him for injury issues. And then it looks like we've got one player, Rico Henry, named in Players Team of the Year at left back there, which is a team dominated by Fulham, looking at that. And then just a look at our last 5 games. I know this doesn't represent the whole season, but it gives us a good idea of what we've been doing with our tactics. So the positives, goals from long range, we've scored 2 of the 19 shots, which isn't massive. Would like more chances within the area, but we've scored 2 from outside the area. Opposition long range shots, we've conceded none of the 12 shots that the opposition's attempted from outside the penalty area, which is a big positive. Keep them shut out. We're also getting a good number of touches of the ball in the opposition's penalty area, but as you can see, we're also conceding a lot in ours. And then 2 of our 5 goals have been scored from positions close to this penalty spot, so we are scoring goals within the penalty area. And then still good, but not as opposition touches to goals. So we've restricted the opposition to 6 goals from 181 touches in our penalty area. So they're getting a lot of touches, 181 touches, but only 6 of them have resulted in us conceding. And then this is a bit of a mess on the graph there, but 183 of 392, so just under 50% occasions on which we've moved into the attacking third have come from central positions. So I wonder if that shows, because we're playing narrowly, we're also playing with inverted forwards as opposed to utilising the overlap. And left wing, we've defended attacks from the left very well, with just 52 of 226 entries into our defensive third coming down that side. So it shows you our strength in depth at left back there. The negatives, we've disappointingly converted 298 touches into just 3 goals in the opposition penalty area. So that's huge. 300 touches. So we're getting the chances there, but we're just not converting them into goals. Goals from shots into the area, we scored just 3 of 71 shots. So out of those 298 touches, 71 of them were shots and only 3 of them were scored. So that probably shows there that we're looking for a clinical out-and-out striker as opposed to Watkins. Opposition final third entries, 119 of 226 occasions we've allowed opposition to attack down the middle. So again, shows that we're very strong down the sides, less so down the middle. From what I recall, there's a lot of counter-attacks, a lot of balls over the top included with that. Henrik Dalsgaard has a lot of possession more than any other player. He's a player that I will come on to shortly, so I won't go into depth too much on him now. One of the 6 goals we've conceded have come from long range, which I can't really say too much about that. If somebody has a pop from range, yes, we can close them down earlier, but there's going to have to be something special from there. And then a weak influence, only 2 of our 90 attacks that led to attempts on goal have involved Josh De Silva. So Josh De Silva, obviously a player doing a lot more work at the defensive end of the pitch as opposed to the offensive end of the pitch. Then as we move to start looking at the squad, I'm not going to do this for every single player, but Raya and Gunnarsson were really the 2 keepers that played more so than anybody else. I think Ilari Balcom played maybe 4 games. Young player, not going to look too much into it, but these were the main 2 keepers. Gunnarsson playing in the cup, Raya playing most of the league games. So we'll do their comparison this way. As you can see, 6.83, 6.82, very, very, very similar average ratings, very similar pass completion. One thing for context as well, Gunnarsson, as I mentioned, the cup keeper, played in the likes of the games against Arsenal, Spurs, so that will obviously affect his average rating, so I'd still have that at 6.82 as well. Very, very good for him. And then, as you can see, generally overall Raya is considered a better keeper attributes-wise. The one thing he does have is more eccentricity than Gunnarsson, which I suppose you can take that either way. Statistics, 39 and 17 appearances for each of them. Raya just conceding under a goal a game, 0.82 conceded per 90 minutes. Just over the 1 goal a game for Gunnarsson, but as I mentioned, given the context, that's still very good. Pass completion very similar. Gunnarsson actually obviously won a couple of tackles, or 1 tackle during the 90 minutes. And then Raya just edging the average rating ever so slightly. And I think given those stats, I think these will be the 2 keepers going forward again next season. Definitely Gunnarsson, and unless we get a big offer for David Raya, I don't see him leaving. And then if we start looking at the squad, this squad view is called Team Analysis. It's one I've picked up on the Steam Workshop, so you can go find it on there. Unfortunately, I can't remember the creator's name, so apologies about that. But search it on the Steam Workshop and you'll find it. And we'll start with the centre backs, having had a look at the keepers. So we've got Ratchich, Janvier, Pinnock, Janssen, and then Sorensen and Roeslev. Roeslev's obviously one of our fullbacks, but can play centre-back. Sorensen was out on loan. But I'll just highlight the 4 that we're really going to look at. So, in terms of mistakes per game, Ratchich, young player, played 6 with 2 substitutions, 1 mistake a game. Same for Janvier, about the same for Pinnock, and Janssen a little bit higher at 52 over 48 games. I don't know what classifies as a mistake in Football Manager, so I don't know whether that's harsh, whether that's about right. And I think 1 mistake a game is acceptable for any player, especially younger players. Janssen might be a little high there, over 1 mistake a game for an experienced player at 29 years old. But as I mentioned, he's a player that we could be looking to move on. Yes, he's considered our best centre-back, but 29 years old, he's not going to be getting any better. If we can get big money for him, might be worth it. Tackles, there's teams conceded, not too worried about that. Interceptions per 90 minutes, as you can see there, Janssen ahead of the other 4 with 3.3. Goals leading to mistakes. So out of the 52, Janssen, 4 of them mistakes have led to a goal for the opposite team. Pinnock was the other one there, so again, weighting in favour of possibly moving Janssen on if we get the right offer. And then the tackle completed ratio and tackles, I think tackles per game, is that? Yeah. So between a 1 and a 1.69, 1.7 for the defenders. So tackles per game, and all of them with very high, Pinnock especially at 93% completion. So that's the main things I'm looking at, and defenders that are definitely doing the job. Then if we just move on to having a look at their passing and winning the headers. Headers obviously defensively, passing is something that I want to build out from the back. So their pass completion, very high, no concerns there from any of them. Possibly Ratchet to 84%, but that's still a very high pass completion ratio, especially for a centre back. And then headers, again, all very similar. Janssen a little bit higher than the others, winning 6.28 instead of between a 5 and a 5.5 headers per 90. And Janssen and Pinnock ahead of Janvier and Ratchich as well for the percentage of those won. So 75 and 78 as opposed to 69 and 65. So 3 and 4 instead of 2 and 3. So Much better in the air for Pinnock and Janssen. Then if we move on to the fullbacks, I've highlighted the main four we're going to be looking at. Yes, Cole De Silva played a couple of games and so did Josh De Silva at fullback, but highlight the main four fullbacks, Dalsgaard and Roeslev, Thompson and Henry. So again, a lot of games played for each of them. Henry and Dalsgaard playing the most. Dalsgaard with 96, Henry at 108 mistakes. That's a lot. As I mentioned earlier, don't know what's considered a mistake in terms of Football Manager, but that's probably averaging just over 2 a game for each of them. Roeslev 30, Thompson 34, so again averaging 2. Is that a mistake? Misplaced pass? Could that be considered a mistake? And then interceptions 2.8, 2.4, then a lot less on the left hand side, 1 and a 1.9, so the interceptions coming more down the right hand side as opposed to the left. Henry with 3 mistakes and Dalsgaard 1 mistake leading to a goal. Tackles completed ratio 88, 91, 86 and 86, all very high, very happy with that. And then averaging pretty much between a 4.9 and a 5.6, so averaging 5 tackles a game. Again, very high, very happy with that. Pass completions all above the 80s, with averaging around a 50 passes completed a game. Key passes, at least 1 per game. Roeslev averaging 2, so that's promising. Key passes. And then headers, Roeslev and Dalsgaard up in the 88, 84, whereas a lot weaker in the air down this left hand side with 42 and 59, so that's definitely something to consider. That's a huge difference. I think that speaks about the players as opposed to anything we can do tactics. That's just them winning the aerial battles, and you can see that reflected in the headers 1 per 90, 3.5, 4.3 as opposed to 1 and a 2. The crosses, lower crosses completed 13, 20, 20, 14. That is something that might look to improve on next year, focusing more down the wings. It seems silly given that we're not completing the crosses, but I think possibly with a new forward that can take advantage, plus emphasising the overlaps from the fullbacks, as opposed to just whipping the ball in and trying to win an aerial battle, might change that. And then chances created per 90, averaging a 0.3, so every other game or every 3 games they're creating a clear-cut chance for the forwards. And looking at the far end of the pitch, goal contributions, 1 goal for Dalsgaard, 1 for Thompson, 3 for Henry, all with fairly high shots on target. Very happy with that for the fullbacks. Dalsgaard is another potential candidate for moving on. 30 years old, was a strong player, main fullback for last year. But I think in Roeslev we've got a ready-made replacement. Very similar stats between the two. So at 30 years old, player in his prime, we can probably look to move on. Again, similar to Janssen if we get the right money for him. If we start looking at the centre of the park, I'm not going to include Paris Magoma or Oliver Skip in this. Magoma, a young player, didn't play too many matches. Skip only on loan and going back anyway. So De Silva, Norgard, Baptiste and Jensen, the 4 that we're going to be looking at here. Played a lot of games between them, averaging just over 1 mistake a game. Probably De Silva a little bit higher. He played about 36 games, just over the mistakes there with 42. So around the 1, nothing crazily high from any of them there. All averaging at around a 1 for interceptions per 90 minutes. Out of the mistakes they made, none of them leading to goals, which is a positive. And as you can see, we've got very combative midfield, all above 80% for tackles won, and then 3.5, 3.42, 3.23 for tackles completed per 90. Jensen lower at 1.5, but did play as Mazzala for the majority of the season, which I suppose explains the less tackles from him. Pass completions all well above 85%, very happy with that, and all completing, apart from De Silva, all well above 50, but Silva just under the 50 passes per 90. And then key passes, Baptiste the only one under 2, and Jensen above the others at 3.13 key passes per 90. But as I mentioned, playing under Zala, so that's going to reflect in his stats slightly. Less tackles, more key passes as the player looking to break forward in the other end of the area. A weakness possibly in the midfield is the aerial battles. So all in and around the 50% mark there. Baptiste a little bit higher at 62%. All winning just over one header per 90. Dribbles, not something that I'm too concerned about the midfield doing, but dribbles per game in and around the 1. Crosses, very similar to the fullbacks, down in and around the 20% mark. Central midfielders, not overly concerned about that. The assists per 90, this, looking at my central midfield, is very low. So when you break this down, a 0.27, Jensen's getting an assist every 4 games. So would like more chances to be created from this midfield. But then that said, overall the season, 12 assists for Jensen. That's from 48 games. So 0.27 sounds very low, but when you really have a look at it, overall 12 assists from one player for the season. I'm fairly happy with that actually. So maybe that 0.27 is right, but if we can bump that up, it's never going to be a bad thing. And then goal scoring, none of them really goal scoring midfielders. Jensen, the highest with 4, a 3, a 2 and a 1. I think it's more a case of they're not getting the chances, because all under 1 shots per 90, generally around the half mark. So I think what it shows there is the midfield is the engine as opposed to the players that are going to be scoring the goals. Yes, I'd like them to create more chances if they don't score anymore. With the front 3, it's not the end of the world, I don't think. Attacking midfielders and the wingers, this one a bit more difficult to see because we've got more players there, so apologies for that. But we've got Mbeumo, Marcondes, 2, Benrahma and Canos are really the players we're looking at. Mistakes seem to be a little bit higher here. Again, difficult to judge. Is that a misplaced pass? Is that a failed dribble? Nothing erratically high. So Mbeumo leading that at 98 mistakes, 2 per game. For a forward player, I think that's acceptable. Not too worried about the interceptions and tackles, but as you can see, tackle ratio for all the highlighted players up and above 85%, so willing to work for the team. That's a very positive, and especially with the high pressing. Pass completions, this is where it gets a bit low, which is a bit of a concern for generally creative players. Yes, a few of them are goal scorers, but they're all above 75, but I'd like to get that above the 80 mark. Mbeumo 2, Benrahma and Canos all falling below the 80%, but all completing well over 20 passes per 90. Looking at key passes, Mbeumo 1.3, Marcondes 2.5, 2 falling under the 1 mark, Benrahma 1, Canos just under the 2. Definitely room for improvement there. Headers around the 50% mark for most. For Benrahma and 2 close to the 1 in 3, so again room for improvement, but wingers not the biggest area for me. Then these, as we're getting to where the stats lie and tell more of a story. So dribbles per game, Mbeumo 2, Benrahma and Canos are really the ones. Marcondes played a lot in central midfield, which is why his stats are lower. 2.3 as opposed to the others over a 4. So he could be dribbling a lot more. Is that quality? Is that other factors? Something that has to be looked at. But the crossing then well under 20 and 30%. Canos the highest at 20%. If you exclude Marcondes, again an area for concern. That we're just not crossing or completing the crosses, which the crosses have been attempted, so I think that might be a striker issue. Assists in and around the 1 in 4 mark again, a little bit less for 2, but overall 9 assists for Mbeumo, 9 for Benrahma from the wings. Would like to see that in double figures next year, definitely. And then as we look at the goals, 9 for Mbeumo, definitely want to see him in double figures. 51% of his shots on target and 1.64 for shots on target per 90. 4 goals from 6 starts and 21 substitute appearances. Would like to see that improved, but similar statistics. He's getting 50% of his shots on target, and he's getting more shots on target per game than Mbeumo as well. Benrahma, top goal scorer. Goal every other game. That's a very good return. 50% of his shots are on target, 2 shots per 90. So if we can get these other players shooting more often, I think they'll have more of a return like Benrahma. And I think Canos, again, very similar stats. 6 goals from him, over 50% of them from shots on target, and a little bit higher of shots per 90 for him at 1.84. And finally we come to the strikers. Top goal scorer from the 3 strikers that we did play, Ollie Watkins with 17, with Force and Botheim chipping in with 8 each. Not much in the way of mistakes for them. 8 for Botheim, 40 for Watkins, 14 for Force. Well up in the tackles for Botheim and Watkins. Force less so, less inclined to do the hard work. That says to me 50%. Passes all completing above 85% possession. 85% passes. Force at 84, the lowest, but very happy with that. Key passes, so what are they doing to provide for other teammates? Averaging a key pass every other game. And then this is where we were talking about the crosses earlier. So Force is the highest with headers won at 50%. So does that signal that we should be playing lower crosses for quicker forwards as opposed to a big bulky target man? Because they're averaging 50% of their headers won, so 50-50. Around 3 headers per 90 that they're winning. So I think lower crosses should be a thing, looking at our strikers. Assists, not too many in the way of assists. 1 for Botheim, 5 for Watkins, 4 for Force. So it could be creating more chances for the others, but if they're leading the line, their main job is to score the goals. At which point Botheim's got 0.69 for goals per 90. Around 60% of his shots are on target, and he's shooting twice, shots on target 2 per game. Around the same for Watkins, 54 and 1.95, and Force at 60 and 2.11. So out of the players we've looked at, there's no obvious weak links. But I've made a couple of decisions on players that I want to get rid of. Or let me rephrase that, not necessarily want to get rid of, but I think could be moved on. So these are the 2 that initially stand out to me. Dalsgaard, as I mentioned, 30 years old, we have a ready-made replacement in Roeslev that I think can slot straight in next year. So if I can get 10 million for him, I think I'd be happy to see him moved on. One of the bigger owners at the club as well at 17,500 a week. And then Marcondes, I think a good player. Unfortunately doesn't fit into our system. Still yet to hit his peak, 25 years old. Again, I think if we can get 10 million for him, add 20 million pounds to the budget, I think we won't miss either of them players. And then on top of that, Janssen is another player that I'm not actively looking to sell, as opposed to these two. He's a player that I'd be happy to move on, given the right money. And I think with the team that I've just put together here, what I believe to be the strongest team going into next season, I think the big players or the big positions we need to be focusing on without any further sales is possibly some competition at halfback for Shandon Baptiste, and then a real out-and-out striker. Yes, we brought Botheim in, we've got Force, two young strikers, but could we pick up an accomplished striker for a reasonable amount? And also, while we've got the tactics screen up, I just want to have a look at some some changes I've made to the tactics. So I've changed the fullbacks to fullbacks from wingbacks, and also put them up to attacking, because I do want them to get further forward. I also want them to cross more often, not necessarily dribbles, which is what one of the wingback criteria would be. So just cross more often, get further forward. The defensive line, rather than having a covering defender, I've now got both centre backs in line with each other, and also dropped the out of possession line to just back a bit to a high defensive line as opposed to much higher. We'll stop them balls going in over the top, hopefully, as the defensive line will be in line with each other, making the offside trap more potent. Change the playmaker to a deep line playmaker as opposed to advanced. May change that depending on the opposition, what they set up with, what personnel we've got. And then partnering in midfield, the Mazzala, looking to break the line and also overlap that left-hand side where Ben Rama is. Left Ben Rama as an inside forward, but switch the right wing to an inside winger. Thinking behind that is get some more creativity. Obviously, Mbeumo's shown he's not a great goal scorer, so let him create the chances and have that out and out forward as the advanced forward up top. I think maybe the Championship, the complete forward, was the wrong idea. I don't think the quality is quite there. But I think that's the plan going into next season. I'm going to play through the summer, and we'll catch up at the end of the summer with the transfers, and I'll bring that in the next episode. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. If you've liked the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.